welcome to another edition of Nightmare Stories from the Other Side. Tonight we look a little different because normally I have my daughter Natalie with me, but she is off doing kid things, and Chad and Laurel are absent as well. Laurel has been out sick, so we hope he gets well soon. But anyways, we welcome in our guest tonight, Christopher Lee Jansen, and here's a little bio on him. Having acquired his first deck of tarot cards at the age of 10, Christopher has been working with tarot for over 30 years, doing readings for clients locally and around the United States. Christopher not only reads tarot, but also teaches others how to begin integrating tarot into their own practices. When Christopher reads, he reads from a premise of traditional tarot knowledge and reliance upon his highly developed intuition. Other than tarot, Christopher has also worked as a medium, blending traditional mediumship with tarot and also working with others in how to harness and build their own potential abilities as a medium. Christopher leads in-person and virtual mediumship development circles locally and around the United States. Before moving to Columbus, Christopher owned and operated a spiritual advising center and spiritual community center in West Allis, Wisconsin. Through his work at the spiritual advising center, Christopher not only helped clients through tarot mediumship, but also hypnosis, past life regression, energy work, and more. When not working with clients, Christopher is out exploring the paranormal world and writing books about his experiences. Christopher offers weekly readings at the Magical Druid in Columbus, as well as monthly readings at Mystic Life in Xenia. Christopher is also the house psychic at the Fairfield County Infirmary in Lancaster, Ohio. You can hear Christopher's takes on the paranormal on the Paranormal Outlook podcast, which blends the paranormal experiences of two psychics and the perspectives of those using more traditional investigation techniques. You can participate in investigations or other events with Christopher at various haunted locations around the U.S., including workshops, seances, galleries, and more. Christopher will also be featured as a special guest speaker for a number of upcoming events and conventions. So welcome in, Christopher, and can you tell us a little more about yourself?
Well, like you said at the very beginning, I stepped into the work that I do around 10 years old. Didn't quite know what it was that I was stepping into, but understood even at that age that it was something that needed to be followed through on and something I needed to learn more about. And since then, it's become a very major part of my life, whether it's working with clients, whether it's working with those who are still here on this side of the veil, those who are on the other side. There's a lot there that needs to be touched upon. And I found myself at a very young age in a position to reach out to that side. And I've taken that very seriously. And it's been a big part of my life ever since.
That's awesome. Yeah, I just had my first tarot reading done, I think it was last weekend, and it was a very interesting experience, to say the least.
Excellent. I love that.
And it was definitely spot on in so many ways. It's just like incredible.
Very cool. That's what I like to hear.
So definitely, somewhere down the line, I look forward to, having another one done and kind of seeing, if it touches on the previous reading and how life is at the point when I have a next one.
Oh, for sure. I mean, I would expect there to be some level of continuity and for there also to be some level of variation as your life continues and you continue down your life's path. Things should change. So I would definitely expect to see some similarities, but still relevant to where you're at the time.
Yeah. So when you got your first deck at the age of 10, was it a gift or was it something that you just saw in a store that you wanted to purchase?
No, I bought it for myself with birthday money from grandma and grandpa.
Nice.
I mean, what 10-year-old does that?
I honestly don't think I've ever heard of one before.
No, maybe it's connected to the fact that I also started drinking coffee at 10 years old. I don't know. Maybe that's connected.
You never know. So when did you actually do a first reading for somebody?
I started practicing, on friends at the age of 11 or 12. When I first really stepped into knowing that there was something there, I had had a dream of a friend of our family's passing away. And the person I dreamt of was a healthy 42-year-old woman. There's no reason in the world anybody should be thinking about her passing away. And then within 3 days, she died. She died of a brain aneurysm. I was 10 when that happened. So that was around the same time I felt the need to go and purchase that first tarot deck. Then, after spending some time just getting to know the cards and traditional meanings and starting to learn what it meant to connect intuitively, I'd say by 11 and 12, I was starting to do readings for friends.
Okay. And then for like, when did you actually start doing it for like, clientele outside of like friends and family?
Late teens, early 20s.
Okay.
I didn't have the spiritual advising center in West Allis until I was in my late 20s, early 30s. But still, I was doing readings for events and at different shops. I'd say late teens.
Okay. And then, so how do you, use the tarot and like, teach that into others in their practices?
Well, the first thing I do is teach about intuition. There's so much to be said about traditional tarot symbology. There's so much to be said about the book and the traditional meaning of each card, but there's also so much to be said about what each card means to the individual and what each symbol contained within each card means to the individual. I've taken so many people through an exercise in just, I throw a random word at you, a random object, and ask, what does that mean to you? What is that symbolic of to you? So everybody really needs to create their own dictionary of symbols when they're going to read and interpret. Because when I'm receiving a message from spirit, I feel that the intention that they have is for me to be able to interpret what they're giving me. So the way I'm interpreting that symbol might not be the same way somebody else interprets that symbol. So symbology and what something means to you and tapping into your own gut, I would say is 60%, if not more, of the puzzle.
Okay. Yeah, like, for me, just having my first reading, it's like, I've always been interested. I'm like, I want, get one done. And it's like, I don't really, know too much about tarot or the history of it. So it was just kind of like, definitely a new experience for me. So what's like some of the history behind tarot for those who may not know, like myself?
Well, tarot really evolved from just simple playing cards. And I mean, that's still a thing to use traditional playing cards for divination purposes based on the numbers and the symbols. And I mean, this goes back hundreds and hundreds of years. Italy was very much a prime factor in the origins of tarot. I mean, when you really dive into it, many of the words that relate to the origins of tarot are Italian in nature. And then over time, the symbology was added, and that comes from so many places. It comes from mythology and archetypes and psychology.
Okay. And then also, like your work as a medium, how have you tied that into tarot?
When I do a mediumship session for someone, I don't always need to incorporate tarot. I mean, I can. There are spreads that I enjoy using for mediumship connection, where anytime you lay down a spread, each card within the spread has its own intention for what that's going to represent. That can be very helpful. But I mean, other times it's like someone's just standing there and talking to me. Someone in spirit is just standing there and talking to me. And I don't necessarily need cards to give the message that they're wanting given. So tying them together to me really adds a layer of depth, but I don't think it's necessary.
Okay. So like over the, past 30 years, what's like one of, you know, I don't know what the word I want to use is, like kind of like most intense tarot reading that you've ever witnessed or been part of?
I had a woman come up to me at a festival years ago. This is when I still lived in Milwaukee. She sat down in front of me and she had a tattoo on her arm of an elderly woman, and underneath it said grandma. And I said to her, that is a beautiful, beautiful tattoo. And she said, thanks. What can you tell me about her? And I said, well, she's still alive. And this woman looked at me like I just punched her in the stomach. And she said, why would you say that? And I said, well, because she's not dead. And that means she's still alive. That's the only other option. I didn't know how to
Yeah.
explain it. And she said, well, you're right. And I would really like to do a reading and talk about her. So, I mean, that's what we did. But just starting out that way and finding myself on the spot, like, well, what makes me say that? I guess my answer is I just know. How do I know? I don't know. I just do. And so often, whether it's doing a reading or going on an investigation, something I say, and I mean, whether we confirm it or not, that question, how do you know that? More often than not, just comes back down to, I just do. I can't explain it.
Okay. And then can you tell us a little bit of your time, like, with the spiritual advising center that you had?
Yes. So I had part of the setup as an office where people could come see me for readings or Reiki energy work. I would also do hypnosis or just general spiritual advising. The other half of the space was more or less an open area or community center for the local pagan community. And we would do full moon rituals and other things of that sort.
Okay. So for like, there like the hypnosis part, how does that, generally work? Again, that's like another area where I don't really have much knowledge of.
I can tell you a number of great stories about hypnosis work that I've done. Some of the most common things I use hypnosis for are to help people change habits, whether that relates to weight loss or smoking cessation or otherwise. I've also done a lot of past life regression hypnosis with people where I help them uncover what one of their past lives may have been. Two experiences that really stand out to me with hypnosis. I had a man contact me one day and he wanted me to hypnotize him to better play the bagpipes. And
Interesting.
I thought, I know absolutely nothing about playing the bagpipes. So I said to him, tell me more. Give me all the information you can give me. And he starts talking about working with this new teacher, and she wants him to make these changes, and she wants him to change his hand position to this. And I stop right there. Say that again about the hand positions. Now I'm really taking notes. Like, okay, these are very practical suggestions she's giving him. I was able to do a hypnosis session for him with a traditional relaxation and induction, testing his suggestibility, deepening him. And then once he was there, implanting these suggestions in his subconscious. So it was easier for him to make these changes when he came out of hypnosis.
Interesting.
That one really stood out to me. Another one that really stood out was very, very recently. 2 Saturdays ago, I did a group past life regression hypnosis session at the old Paulding Jail in Paulding, Ohio. When I do a past life regression for one or two individuals, I will ask them the questions in real time and hope for them to answer me. Like once I go through the whole process and they land where they're supposed to land, the first thing I'll have them do is look down at their feet. Tell me about your feet. And they might say, well, I'm barefoot. They might say, I'm wearing this on my feet or this on my feet. To me, that's a very easy way to start versus just telling them after they land, look around. What do you see? I mean, that's very overwhelming. So we start with the feet, we work up. When I do a group session, I don't give them the space to answer the questions out loud. They just have to hang on to it. And then at the end, we debrief. So this group session 2 Saturdays ago at Old Paulding, This man comes out of his session and says to me, "That was really strange." And I said, "All right, just hang on to that. We're going to debrief in a little bit, 5 minute break, and we'll come back." So I ask him about his feet, and he says he was barefoot, and we move down the line, and I'm getting other answers. I ask him what he was wearing, and he says, "I was wearing animal skin." And this woman in the group goes, "So was I."
Hmm.
That's not an answer I get very often. I mean, we don't go back quite that far normally. And as we were going through other bits and pieces, there were other things that seemed moderately similar between the two of them. But then I got to where I took them to the point of their death in that lifetime. And I asked them, "How did you die?" And he said, "I was mauled by an animal." And this other woman in the group goes, "So was I."
Interesting.
So we had to take some time after that to dig and to see how and why they may have been connected. And the way things fell, I used a tarot spread to help dig into that. They were very much connected in the same lifetime, very much connected in a familial sense. It was very different, something I've never really seen before.
Hmm. That sounds really interesting.
That's like real time. That just happened. That's barely 2 weeks old. So,
So I know I had brought up in our conversation about when we're at Post Town Elementary, about doing the hypnosis when we're there. Is
mhm.
there a way you could do like a past life regression session at that point too?
Certainly. I mean, however many people you'd like to be involved, whether it's one, two, or more. Like I said, if it's one or two, I'll ask the questions in real time and give the instruction that they'll answer the questions for me. If it's more than two people, then we'll just hang on to their answers and they can debrief at the end. So, yes, absolutely.
Yeah, because I think it would be really cool because we have, without giving anything away, I know for sure two members on my team. It would be really cool to see what happens with them. And then, probably for sure myself, but then I don't, I can't speak for the rest, but I just think, definitely have some people that would be open to do it.
Right. Yeah, I'm down for anything. I mean, I can do one, two, or more. There's
Okay.
ways to make it work.
Yeah, because always trying to think of for investigations this year, kind of doing something a little different, experiments and stuff that you don't see or hear about too often.
I love that.
Yeah, for us, that's gonna be kind of like a bigger road trip. We're gonna be gone like a week and we're gonna be at investigating 5 different locations before we even get to the Fairfield event where we're vendors. So
Wow. Well, yeah, I'll definitely be there, but that's quite an experience.
yeah.
I think the closest I've come to that was doing Waverly, Old Paulding Jail, and Whispers Estate, just back to back to back, one after the other. That's intense.
Yeah, we're starting only my daughter and I know the first 2 locations. We're kind of keeping a secret from everybody else. One's a day investigation, followed by a night investigation. And then we got a couple-day break, and then we're hitting Waverly, and then Post Town, and then Old Hospital on College Hill back to back to back.
Ah, Old Hospital is so high on my list of places I want to go. I've not been there.
You should come along with us.
That's going to be right before FC Icon.
Yep.
What days exactly? Would that be like Thursday,
Yes.
Friday?
So we'll be Post Town on Wednesday the 18th, and then Old Hospitals on the 19th.
I'll have to be back at FCI by Friday, but
It's only
so you're,
3 hours away. It's not, I surprised how close it is.
I might be able to pull it off.
But yeah, it's one of those, it wasn't originally planned on the trip and I saw it was still open and it's like 3 hours away. I'm like, I have to add it. It's just like one of those bucket list locations.
Absolutely. Like I said, that is right at the top of my list of places I want to go. Have you ever been to Waverly?
Yes, my oldest daughter that you just saw briefly, we were there last July for one of the junior investigations. So,
Nice.
there was like 50, 60 other people there. So
Right.
it wasn't we didn't get much activity, but it's just like, we did get a little bit. We do have a story to tell, which her and I are not going to tell about until we get to Waverly this year with the rest of the team. But, there's just certain areas we were in, and, people are butting in, not really caring who's in there. So I always said, I go, we need to do this investigation right. So we're going back in June, and we're going to have like, there's 8 of us in our team, plus we're going to have some other people join. So we're going to have like 13 people. So I'm running ideas in my head of stuff we're going to do. And my daughter came up with a cool experiment she wants to do there, which I've never heard done at a location anywhere. So this one's going to be kind of really cool for a location that size.
I am going to give you an idea of something to do when you're back at Waverly.
All right.
Go up to the 5th floor
Yep.
where the children were.
Mm-hmm.
Bring a pad of paper and a pen, markers, whatever. Invite them to draw pictures with your hands.
Okay.
I'll leave that there. I just bring a pen and paper and invite the children to draw pictures with your hands.
All right. I do got a little paranormal notebook I bring everywhere, so that'll be perfect. And
It, it
I
is the
always have.
most it's the most unbelievable sensation when they latch onto that and take control of your hand and start drawing.
All right.
And some of them are a bit more shy and reserved, like, oh, I don't know about this, while the other ones are like, yes, let's go. And they're just
Nice.
all in, ready to draw that picture. And I'll tell you that the hours I spent up there doing that one night, all of the drawings that came out were far better than anything I would ever do on my own. They were clearly children's drawings, still far superior to anything I would ever do.
Oh yeah, I am like a horrible artist. It's like for photography, I can do anything blindfolded. But when it comes to drawing, a stick figure, that's all I can do.
I get it. I'm right there.
So how many times have you been to Waverly?
Only once.
Only once?
Just once. Definitely needing to get back. It's not possible to cover it all in one night.
Oh, it's definitely not. It's just like, when we were there from like only midnight to 5 in the morning investigating, and it's just like, just so much. And it's like, it would be kind of nice having like our team of 8. We can cover a lot of ground, and then what everybody else does. But it's just like, even with the time we're going to have there, like 8 hours, it's like, I know there's stuff we're going to miss.
Right. Yeah, it's impossible to get it all.
But yeah, we're
I mean,
definitely looking forward to it.
I mean, even places smaller than Waverly. I mean, Fairfield County Infirmary isn't the size and magnitude of Waverly, and I feel like that can be difficult to get it all in one night.
Yeah, I just had I don't know if you're familiar with Tina Tibbetts from Journey into the Haunted.
Yeah,
Yeah, her and a couple friends just did Madison and Fairfield like back in, was it November, December? And
nice.
she goes, we couldn't cover everything, just the 3 of us.
Right. No, even after settling in at Fairfield County Infirmary as their house psychic, I would say that even after a year of being there were still rooms I hadn't had the time to explore and investigate. And people would come up to me during our public events and they'd ask me about a room. Well, what do you know about this room? I'm like, nothing. I don't think I've ever set foot in it. Let's go.
But yeah, it's like when we're there for the con, it's like, again, it wasn't originally planned. I'm like, wait, they're having their event on the 21st. We're going to be at Post Town. Why not jump on and be a vendor there?
Absolutely.
So I think for me, like when we're there doing the vendor booth, I probably will, be at the booth only half the time because I'm gonna be wanting to roam around taking pictures.
Oh, for sure. Have you ever been there?
I have not.
Oh, you're going to get good and lost in that building the first time. It's so interesting because the layout of the building is not that complicated. But for even myself, the first time going in there, I just remember wandering around and going, if somebody weren't with me, I could be lost in here forever.
Yeah, nothing wrong with that.
Oh, no, definitely not. And my first few visits felt that way too before I really got the layout of the building. I mean, now I could wander around the building blindfolded, and know where I
Oh,
was
I'm sure.
going.
Yeah, it's kind of like that way on our way to Waverly last year. We stopped at Indiana State Sanatorium on the way down and just did
Yes.
like a 2 hour day roam. And it's like, it got lost. I got lost in there. I got separated from my daughter and my wife's cousins. Like, okay, where are they? I'm like, I'll find them eventually.
I love ISS. I go out there every year in October for the Rockville Covered Bridge Festival, and I do readings at the sanatorium for that stretch of
Nice.
covered bridge. And because I'm staying out there and sleeping out there, there's mornings I'll get up as the sun is rising and I'll go for a run around the grounds, or I'll go up to the top of the 5 story and do Tai Chi as the sun is coming up. Just, I love that place. I've had some unbelievable experiences there as well as at Billy Creek.
Yeah, when we were at ISS, we were down in the tunnels and just had all we had was a music box with us and just my, regular photography camera. And, the music box started going off. And then also like above us up in, up by the nurse station, we heard stuff getting drug across the floor. And we're like, this is like 5:30, and we're like, what the heck was that? So we go
Yep.
up there, try to figure out where it was. Obviously, we couldn't pinpoint where it was. But then I realized later on, I'm like, wait, that's the same exact spot when Project Fear was there at like, 1, 2 in the morning. They heard the same exact thing. And
Nice.
I've heard that story from a couple other people that they've been down the tunnels and they've heard furniture get moved around upstairs.
I believe it.
So yeah,
Yeah,
that's
I've spent a lot of time there, and I absolutely believe that. That place is very, very active.
yeah. Tina, she was just there a month or so ago. She was on the way back from somewhere. She did an overnight there by herself.
Nice. That would be
I'm
epic.
Yeah, it's just like I don't know how she managed to do that, but it's like props to her because at night it's like anybody can get in there, so it's like you never know what you're gonna encounter.
Right. Oh, that would be amazing. I would love that.
Yeah, saying I would do it, but then I'd be kind of like freaking out a little bit at the same time.
There's very little that stands in my way. There's very little that freaks me out. The biggest thing that freaks me out and stands in my way, I'll be very honest, bats.
Oh yeah,
The stupid bats. I mean, when we're at Post Town, I'm going to be very honest with you. I will be wearing my beekeeper hat. I'm going to look like an idiot, and I don't care. I'm going to be living my best life wearing my beekeeper hat, protected from the bats, and having a great investigation, uninhibited by my fear of them.
well, I remember when we were at Waverly, the group I was with, they were like, we had a mom and daughter join up with us. Like, oh, you got the equipment. You guys look like you know what you're doing. I'm like, not really, because at that time I've only been in the field for like 3, 4 months, so I was like super new, not really knowing what I was doing. I'm like, sure, you can join with us. So we heard a loud knock or something down one of the hallways. I think we're on the third or fourth floor. I'm like, well, I'm gonna go down and check it out. Who's coming with me? Nobody. They all stayed behind me. So I'm like walking down. All I have is my Phasm cam, and I didn't realize it at the time. But I get back and watch a video. There's like a bat swooping, like almost hitting my head. I didn't even see it.
I only saw one my whole night at Waverly, which is a miracle. And I discovered that I can handle them there because of the solarium. It's so open. You just
Yeah.
run out and you're good. But when we found the bat there, I don't remember which floor we were on. A friend of mine and I were on one end of the floor, and another friend of ours is at the other end. And she was recording. She had an IR light. We had no light down at our end, couldn't see a thing. And I said to my friend, "There's a bat down here." And she said, "No, there's not. I mean, we couldn't see a thing." And I said, "I heard it.
Hmm.
There's a bat down here. I heard it." And now our friend at the other end of the floor with the IR lights, like, "What are you guys talking about?" And my friend who is with me says, "He thinks he heard the thing that we don't talk about." And then down at the other end of the hallway, we just hear our friend start screaming because it came her way and almost hit her right in the face. They're very attracted to the IR lights for whatever reason. So, because she was recording, I mean, she got it just going back and forth between our end and her end and our end and her end. I mean, I never saw it, but I knew it was there. I heard it.
Yeah. But yeah, like I think the one at Waverly too went right by my ear and I felt it. I'm like, part of the experience.
I had one gotten that close to my ear, my spirit would have left my body. That would have been the end. I don't do anything that flies. This is so stupid, but I don't even do butterflies.
Hmm.
Anything that flies, anything that's that out of control and unpredictable, I can't do it. Now, if it's got legs, well, it depends. The I call them alien demon crickets. The spider cricket things in the tunnels at ISS, absolutely not.
I didn't see any of those when we were there.
Oh, lucky you. They're ghastly. But I mean, now I'm at a point where, I mean, your traditional spider, even the big old wolf spiders, I mean, I'll play with them. I'll let them crawl in my hands. I'm good. Then if it doesn't have legs, I mean, give me a snake, I'm good. But
Hmm.
wings, I'm out.
So for paranormal investigations, besides obviously Fairfield and Waverly and Post Town, what are some other prominent locations you've been to that stand out?
Well, I was just at the Licking County Jail last night. This is my
Yeah.
second visit. My first visit was in 2023 for 2 nights. Now I just went back last night. I have been to the old Paulding jail many, many times. I've got some projects going there and some psychic events coming up this year. The Ross House in Bel Air, I've got some events coming up there. I've spent a lot of time there. West Virginia State Penitentiary is one of my favorite places, even despite the bats. So I travel around quite a bit. Those are some of my favorite places.
So speaking of Licking County Jail, it looked like you had quite the interesting night from the posts I saw on Facebook. Can you talk a little bit about that, or is that kind of
Oh,
hush hush for
that's it.
now?
Well, settle in. I got a story for you.
All right.
So when I was there in 2023, 2 nights in a row, it was with two different groups of people, two completely unrelated sets of circumstances that brought me there 2 nights in a row. The second group of people I didn't even know, just complete odd coincidence that I ended up there 2 nights in a row and with a group of people I didn't know. So that second night, I'm in base camp and there's a set of dowsing rods sitting on the table. And I watch this girl go and pick up the rods. And I see I have a message on my phone. I look at my phone. It's a message from a friend of mine who's at the infirmary, Fairfield. And it says, "I just connected to a little boy here who says he needs your help, but he understands that you can't help him because you're at the jail helping Julie." And I'm thinking, I'm not helping anybody. I'm contemplating another piece of pizza. I'm really not doing anything at the moment. So I'm reading this. I'm watching this young woman standing at the table with the rods in her hand that she'd come and picked up. I'm so perplexed. I read the message out loud, and when I did, the rods in the girl's hand crossed. Like, well, that's interesting. The girl didn't quite know what to do with the rods, and she almost threw them.
Hmm.
And I said, "No, you hang on to those because I think now you're part of this adventure." And I asked whomever was connecting to the rods, "Will you please uncross?" And they did. And I said, "If you're Julie, please cross." And they did. I said, "Okay, please uncross." I said, "Julie, would you use those rods to point us where you need us to go?" And they took us up the stairs to the sheriff's quarters, into a room that was set up with a small bed, child-sized bed, stuffed animal, looked like a child's room. And I looked at that bed and I thought, this isn't right. It's facing the wrong way. Like the footboard was toward the wall, not the headboard.
Hmm.
I thought, that's not right, but it is right. It's supposed to be facing that way, but it needs to be moved over. It needs to be facing the window. If the headboard is where it is, Julie needs to be able to look out the window. So I spent a long time in there getting the story of a little girl who had been very ill and was not able to leave the house. And her mother had put her bed facing the window so she could look out and feel like she was out in the world.
Hmm.
And after all that came through, I'd said, "Julie, where else do you want us to go?" And she used the rods to point us to the stairs, one floor up. She wanted to look out the window, one floor up. And that was pretty much the end of that experience. So when I went back last night, one of my first stops was Julie's room. I walk into the room, the bed's gone. The toys are gone. They've done some rearranging and remodeling. I had such a strong reaction to seeing that. Like, I wanted to sit down on the floor and cry. And then I pulled out the rods and went to see, is Julie here? And just nothing.
Oh, that's sad.
I was heartbroken. So we go up one floor to the matron's quarters. I am standing in what had been a bathroom, and I'm getting this image of a woman, late 40s, 50s, very well put together woman, thinking, okay, she clearly was not a prisoner here. She worked here. And then my thoughts are interrupted by someone calling my name and saying, "I think I found Julie's bed." All right, so I go down the hall. There's a closet. There's a bed that's been taken apart. It's in the closet. It was not the same bed because the head and footboard were identical. You couldn't distinguish which was which. So it wasn't the same bed. But now I'm standing there in the hallway of the matron's quarters, and everybody in the group was in that hallway too. And there's a music box sitting by the door. There's cat balls out. Somebody's got rods. And I said, my left side just got really cold. Somebody's about to come in that door. And within seconds, the music box went off. I mean, seconds. It was like almost on command when I said, somebody's about to come in that door. And after the music box went off, again, I got this image of the woman that I was seeing when I was in that bathroom. And somebody else in the group said, "There's a woman in here." And I said, "Yep." And the person who'd said that said, "Her name has an S sound. Essa. Francesca." And I said, "No." And she said, "Tessa." And I said, "No, Contessa." And the person who'd said this just, I mean, screamed, yes, in agreement. We were both feeling the same thing. At that point, somebody had asked her, "Contessa, may I call you Tessa?" And my response, I practically yelled at them. I said, "No,
Hmm.
that is reserved for close friends, close family." And then I looked at her and like, "I am so sorry. That was not from me. I just, there's your answer. I'm sorry I gave it that way, but that's how it hit." Once I said that, the music box was going off, the cat balls were going off, the rods someone was holding on to were responding, and the rods were fixated on me. Somebody had asked if Contessa wanted for just me to be the one to ask her questions, and we got a very clear yes. So I said, "Contessa, did you work here?" "Yes." "Did you work with jail records?" Yes. There's a couple pieces next in line with this story that I'm going to hang on to now because there's a couple pieces that I've not confirmed yet. I want to hang on to those till we get out there. But I said to her, you were forced to do some things that you didn't agree with because they were dishonest, and you did them to protect your family. Yes. Your husband passed away before you. Yes. You had an older son who left home and never came back. Yes. You had a daughter at home who was very sick. Yes. Her name was Julie. Yes.
Hmm.
And that's the picture you saw of me holding on to the door, ready to just lose it. I mean, having that whole experience come around full circle from more than a year earlier
Definitely.
was just so intense.
That is definitely one of the most intense stories I've heard, doing these podcasts or, just, talking to people in general or experiences I've had.
Oh, this was unbelievable. I mean, I was shaking so bad I had to go sit down. I've never felt anything quite that intense where I had to physically get off of my feet or I felt like I was going to go down.
Crazy.
Yeah. Yeah. I have a couple other pieces from last night's investigation that I'm going to hang on to for a little bit until I get a little bit more information. Now, I will tell you that I have reason to believe that I'm going to get some more information about this on my next visit to Ohio State Reformatory.
Hmm.
And
Interesting.
that is going to be just before I see you at Post-Town.
All right.
So I might be able to give you some of those details that I'm hanging on to then. I'm pretty particular about hanging on to certain things until I have confirmation.
Oh, yeah,
I don't
for sure.
I don't like to speak of certain things until I'm certain.
That's kind of like the same way with, what my daughter and I encountered at Waverly. It's like after we got back, you know, I did some digging into it, like, just trying to confirm what happened. But still, it's like one of those things that we want to hold on to right now until we get to Waverly, just kind of see how it plays out and, you know, just documenting the night and like just we'll talk about with the team then, but yeah, as I said, we just want to save it until we're there on the property to see if we get anything.
Right. I totally get that. I mean that shows to me not only a sense of integrity in your work, but respect for the spirits of a place. So I
Yeah,
very much appreciate that.
but yeah, it's just like one of those things that was just like totally mind blowing. That is just you'll hear about it eventually, but it's just one of those moments that was very profound for me. It's just like, did that really just happen?
Yeah, last night there was a couple of people that I've investigated with before, not very frequently. A couple of people had said to me they'd never quite had an experience that profound, that real before.
And like, as I said, I've only been, doing investigating now coming up a year and like a couple weeks, and I've only had two other experiences that had that impact on me. Like my first
Mhm.
was at Edinburgh Manor. I went with Grey Duck Paranormal for my first investigation. I had no
Mhm.
idea what I was getting into. I'm like, okay, do I really want to go? Do I want to do this? What's going to happen? And they're all good friends of mine. I've known them for years.
Mhm.
And Griffin and I, we were sitting up in the puzzle room, and it was about 9:30, 10 o'clock at night. And, when you go on investigations, you put your phone in airplane mode, silent, whatnot, so it doesn't interfere with everything. At around 10 o'clock, my phone starts ringing. It's like, what is that noise? Griffin goes, is that your phone? I'm like, no, it's in airplane mode. So I go look at it. Here it's my phone ringing, and my daughters were calling me to say goodnight, and my phone was still in airplane mode, but ringing.
That's great.
I'm like, that should not be happening.
I had something very similar happen at Trans Allegheny. I was on the third floor, I believe, because the night we were there, they kept talking about the fourth floor and all of these experiences. And if you can take a lap around the fourth floor and make it without a light, just that's so brave. And I connected to next to nothing on the fourth floor. Third floor was like my Disneyland. I just great experiences. But I'd gone into one of the isolation rooms and closed the door behind me. And I set all of my things down on the floor, including my phone. And I was just standing there and taking in the space when all of a sudden my phone started making this awful noise that I've never heard before. I'm like, what the heck? So I went and picked up the phone and looked. I had a message on my screen that my phone was in emergency mode because the side button had been hit 5 consecutive
Oh, weird.
times. I mean, it's never happened since. That's only time and place it's ever happened.
That's insane.
That was pretty amazing. That was epic.
And then like another one that happened really didn't it involve me, but not so much. We were at the Redwood Falls Poor Farm back in it was July of last year. So it's kind of our first investigation as a team, but not really, because it was my daughter Natalie and I, and my co-founder Chad and his daughter Macy, which were the core four for our group before we really ramped up and started this past October. But we were in so that property is three buildings. There's like the poor farm, the school, and the county jail. So we're in the school session or in the school room, and we're using the dowsing rods, and we had a music box, flashlights, REM pods. The dowsing rods for me would not do a thing. They just wouldn't move. It's like, okay, well, obviously the spirits don't want to talk to me. They don't like me. But for my daughter, those things were just going bonkers.
Wow.
And she was talking with the spirit named Liam. He was like a student there. And it's like, Liam, I go, if you're here and you really like communicating with Natalie, you know, I will give you $1 if you take the dowsing rods and hit her in the head. I never seen those things move so fast. She got smacked in the forehead. It's like, well, you're getting $1 left. So I left him $1 on the school desk. And yeah, just for her, like, the music box was constantly going off. You know, the flashlights were responding to all the questions she was asking them. And both her and I even saw a shadow figure pass in front of the windows there, like of a student.
Wow.
So that was, a very interesting night.
Yeah, for sure. That's amazing.
And it's like one of those smaller locations. And, she's been to a dozen places. As I said, she's been to Waverly Hills, but so far still, that is her favorite location.
Yeah, I can see how that would happen. I've only been there once and my experiences were amazing. For me to for a location to reach the status of my favorite or even runner-up favorite, I have to have been back over and over and over again, really having a chance to dig and to connect to what's there.
But yeah, for like me and my location is Edinburgh Manor because it was my first location I went to. I've been back there once. We're going back in about a month, and then I'll be there at the end of June. So I'll be there twice this year. But there's just, something about that location. It's got that it factor for me.
I get it. There's a place in Racine, Wisconsin that's very special to me, and this is not your abandoned, crumbling place. I mean, it was built in the 1800s. It's called the DeKoven Center.
Never
Built
heard
in
of
the
it.
1800s, it was a school for boys, it was a convent, it was a monastery. Now it's more of a bed and breakfast and spiritual retreat center.
Okay.
So once a year, I would rent a suite on the third floor and do a mediumship immersion weekend where I'd take a group of people and lead them through mediumship and psychic development exercises. And we'd have this haunted building to play in. And when you'd rent a suite, there'd be 6 rooms, 2 beds per room. Your bathrooms were right there. There was a meeting room, and they'd bring your meals up to you so you could all eat in the meeting room. It was just fantastic. When that was a school for boys, the school was run by a man whose title was the warden. And I had a number of friends tell me they tried to stay in the warden's suite and they never could make it through the night because things would happen. And I never had a chance to stay in the warden's suite because it just wasn't practical for my purposes when I was there. I was always with a group or facilitating a group. Well, when the warden died, he fell outside during a snowstorm and was there on the ground for hours and hours. And when they finally brought him back in, he ended up developing pneumonia and dying in his room.
Hmm.
One particular mediumship development weekend, we had a snowstorm. And the weekend wraps up, and I'm thinking, I don't want to drive home. So I called to see if I could stay another night. And they said, well, if you don't mind being the only ones in the building, there's no staff and there's no other guests.
Hmm. All right.
Do I mind being the only one in the building? It's like I'm now like a kid on Christmas morning.
Right, for sure.
I'm like, do we have to stay in our same room? Can we sleep elsewhere? Like, no, you can sleep wherever you want. Just leave a note so we know where to change the sheets. And my ex and I were together at the time, and I was like, get down to the warden's suite. That is where we're spending the night.
Nice.
So, I mean, we had this great night exploring the grounds, and we'd walk across the way to the lake and play in the snow. I mean, just lots of fun. Go back up to the suite, play cards. Finally, it was time for bed, and we're laying there in bed on opposite sides. Like, I'm on my right side, my ex on the left side facing the wall, and I feel this go across the top of my head. And I turn and look. My ex hadn't moved.
Hmm.
And then before I could say anything, says, "Do you feel that?" And I thought about it for a second. When the warden ran the school for boys, what might he do at night? Maybe walk around checking on the kids sleeping, maybe brush the hair out of their eyes?
Mm-hmm.
And I said, if there's any place in this building we are the safest, it is this room right here. And I fell asleep and slept like an absolute baby. I felt like I had protection the whole night. But that place is pretty special to me. I mean, it doesn't have the mystery factor that some of the abandoned places do. It doesn't have
Yeah.
the, you go around a corner in the abandoned place and you're just waiting, wondering, what are you going to see?
Right.
I mean, this place is well kept. It's beautiful. The energy there, it's much of the children, very mischievous, playful. But that place definitely has a special, special place in my heart.
Nice. Um, let's see. Oh, before I forget, total random question has nothing to do with the paranormal.
Uh-huh.
Your Stevie Nicks coffee mug. Where did you get that?
Where did I get that?
Because I want one.
You know what? I will have to look and let you know. That may have been a gift.
Okay.
I think that was a gift from one of my Pilates clients, actually.
But I saw that when I was going through your Facebook page. I'm like, I need that.
Wait a minute. You're talking about the one that's got the album covers, right? Like it's the
Yes.
cassette.
Yes.
I ordered that. That one I ordered. I will send you a link to where
All
I
right.
ordered that.
Definitely need to get that. Love Fleetwood Mac.
Me too. I have seen Stevie 15 times,
Nice.
twice with Fleetwood Mac, 13 times solo. I have a massive tattoo of Stevie on the back of my right leg. I also have a Christine McVie tattoo. So
Nice.
yeah, their music is my world.
I never got to see them live, but love their music. Every time it comes on, I'm like, gotta listen to it. My youngest daughter's like,
Oh,
oh God, I gotta listen to this again.
I feel like Stevie's music has just Stevie in a way has like been my life coach. Like I remember running a marathon and being on mile 22 out of what marathon's 26.2. I just being
Yep.
that close and thinking, God, I can't do this. I'm gonna die. And then a Stevie Nicks song will come on. It's like, I've got that.
Right.
I mean, one of the most profound ones, November, not November, September 2023, we put a dog down. We lost our Loki. And I remember driving to the vet and thinking, is this the right thing to do? Should we try to change his meds? I don't know if this is right. And then I walked into the vet and Fleetwood Mac's The Chain was playing. And I took great comfort in that. I knew I was making the right decision. So their music has really, really impacted my life.
And probably many, many, many others.
For sure. For sure. I mean, it's like Aunt Stevie. It's like she's just everybody's fairy godmother or
Right.
whatever you want to call it. She's
Anyways, back to paranormal. So my oldest daughter, who's not here, she would probably attack me in my sleep if I didn't ask this question because she's such a huge fan. But Sam and Colby. So how did that come about? That they book Fairfield, or was that kind of something that just you happened to step into? Or
No, they booked Fairfield and they said that they had wanted me to be there with them. So I didn't have any, actually, it's very odd. I did have something else going on, and the weather was very poor that day. I had to back out of a psychic fair in Cleveland because the weather was just so bad. I'm like, it is not practical to drive there and back. But then that opportunity came up, and FCI is much, much closer to me. I mean, it's like 35 minutes away. That's much more doable than the 2.5+ hours to Cleveland.
yeah,
So I don't want to say too much about what happened that night because I mean the episode hasn't been released
right.
yet, but I will say that they brought someone with them that I did a reading for, and the reading went completely sideways. I tapped into something entirely different pertaining to someone else.
Interesting.
And the direction it went was very, very surprising even to me.
Yeah. I said, I told her, I go, yep, our guest tonight, he just met Sam and Colby, had a picture with them at Fairfield. And she's like, oh, come on, really? She's just like, she's watched all their episodes, numerous times. And we actually did a meet and greet last June when they were up here in Minnesota at the Mall of America. I took
Nice.
I took her and her best friend. It was the first Saturday after school done. Waited in line 13 hours just so they could meet them and get a picture taken with them for 30 seconds.
Wow, that's amazing.
Yeah. We got there at like 6:30 in the morning, and it was about almost 7:30 at night when we actually got to where they were.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, I'm glad you saw it through and had the experience.
Yeah.
After meeting them, I think they are great guys, and I'm glad you waited and saw it through. Yeah.
And then on our way back from Waverly, we were, coming up through Iowa, and she's like, "Oh, we should go by for our elementary school because I want to see that building." And at the time, it wasn't public that they had bought it yet,
Right.
but I knew they had bought it because I was supposed to investigate there, and I was in contact with the previous owner. He goes, "Well, we just sold it," and he told me who they sold it to, so I knew, but nobody else did. I'm like, "Well," she goes, "We should stop by there because I want to see it." So we get to the property and we're just going to take pictures, and the caretakers were there. We just missed them by like 12 hours.
Oh,
If we would have gotten there the day before, they were just leaving because they were there for the Hell Week. So we missed them by like 12 hours.
Oh,
So you could just imagine if we roll up on Farrar and there's Sam and Colby there having an 11-year-old girl, she would have just like freaked out.
oh, that would have been amazing. I don't think I realized that was in Iowa.
Yep. Yeah, it's about 40 minutes north of Des Moines.
Okay. I had no idea. That's
Yep.
very interesting. I'll have to file that away in my brain.
Yep. So yeah, we just missed them, but she goes, someday she goes, I want to investigate with Sam and Colby. I'm like, I don't think that's gonna happen, but never say never.
Stranger things have happened. I've been witness to many, many strange things in my time.
Yeah. Well, and it's just like one of my friends, Rachel of Grey Duck Paranormal, this last December, her and her best friend, they were downtown St. Paul and they ran into Dakota and Connor from Project Fear at a restaurant.
Nice.
So you just never know.
Right. Oh, for sure. It's a strange world.
It definitely is. So for 2025, besides the FC Icon coming up and joining us for an investigation or two, what other investigation events do you have coming up this year?
Well, this coming weekend, I will be out at Wildwood Sanitarium in Salamanca, New York. They're having a Girls and Ghouls slumber party where I was invited as a special guest. So I will be doing a session in the seance room and then available for readings throughout the evening. In April, the first weekend, I've got an event at the Ross House in Bel Air, one of my trifecta events where I do a psychic workshop, a seance, and then an investigation. I'll be doing that again at Ross in November. I'll also be doing that at Bill Manor the last Saturday of June. I've got 3 of my own psychic hunts at FCI this year. I'll be a special guest at not only FCI Con, but MadCon and ISS Con as well. So this is turning out to be a very, very busy year. I'll
Oh,
be at the Gettysburg Battlefield Bash doing readings. It'll be my first time going to Gettysburg. I almost feel like I'm obligated to this year after an experience I had in October that connected me into the Civil War. So
yeah,
that
definitely
was wild.
sounds
That was wild.
interesting.
To make a long story short, and I'll keep this one short because there's going to be a book about this. There's going to be a book just about this experience. A friend of mine asked me to do a Civil War themed photo shoot at the Billy Creek Civil War House. She is a Civil War reenactor and photographer, and because of being a photographer, there's very few pictures of her in her Civil War clothing.
Okay.
So she secured for me a soldier's uniform. And when I went to the house, went in the house and started to change, I remember thinking, there's electricity coming up through the floor of this house and through my feet. There's no electricity in the house,
Hmm.
but that's what I was feeling. So I finished dressing. I step outside. My friend is sitting there in the rocking chair on the porch. And I look at her and I think, who am I looking at? The woman in front of me is absolutely not the woman I know. I am seeing somebody entirely different. She hears the door close, looks at me, gets up, walks away, leaves.
Hmm.
Comes back a few minutes later and she says, I am so sorry, but when I turned and looked at you, I didn't see you. I saw an entirely different man standing there.
Well, that's insane.
That led to 5 nights at the Civil War House, uncovering some absolutely unbelievable things. But yeah, needless to say, I won't miss Gettysburg this year.
Oh, definitely.
The last weekend of May and into June, too, I've got an event out at Fort Duffield. Fort
Nice.
Duffield in Kentucky. Yeah, I'm looking forward to that. I'll do some galleries and other things out there. I've got a number of events at Paulding, different psychic fairs, and my own trifecta weekends where I'll do my own events again. It's like there's something every month for sure.
Now it's kind of like with us this year. It's like, we start out here in March and we're like going nonstop until like October. I'm like, well, what else can happen?
Right. I mean, October is just completely gone for me already. I mean, 10 of those days are at ISS for Covered Bridge. I wouldn't miss that for anything. Love those 10 days out at ISS. Yeah, my year is definitely filled up. I would still like to try to get into a couple more new places. I mean, I've already hit the Jonesville Rest Home this year for the first time. A couple other places I've already hit for the first time, but I'd like to fill in some gaps with some more new places. I'll do a 4-day stretch out in New York for Wildwood, Hinsdale, and then I'd like to hit a couple nights at Lilydale too.
Nice.
Are you familiar with Lilydale?
I've heard of it, but not really super familiar with it.
It's, like take my ashes and scatter them at Lilydale.
Hmm.
It's just, it's a group or a village of spiritualists and spiritualist mediums. And it's just the most beautiful, beautiful grounds. There's a lake and there's woods, and they've got a fairy village set up in the woods. Not a fairy garden, a fairy village. It's just
Hmm.
gorgeous and peaceful and spiritual. Take my ashes and spread them at Lilydale. It's just, oh, and it's very close to Wildwood. So
Okay.
I plan to make a stop on Sunday on my way home. It's supposed to be bitterly cold there, like 20 degrees. I don't care. I have to go set feet on the ground at Lilydale. I can't be that close and not
Yeah.
do it.
Like
Very special place.
one thing we got going on this year is kind of unique. In September, I don't know if you're familiar with Broadhead Manor in
I've
Wisconsin.
heard of it. Yes, I'm actually from Wisconsin.
Yep.
I spent the first 36, 37 years of my life in Milwaukee. So.
But yeah, in September we're doing a homecoming dance themed investigation at Broadhead.
Wow.
So like that investigation, everybody has to either be wearing a tux or homecoming dress the whole night.
Wow, that's going to be off the charts.
Yep. And I got permission, like I can kind of do up the gym a little bit to make it like homecoming theme with the lights and balloons. And so it's gonna be kind of unique. And I think like going forward after this year, kind of want to make it into a yearly thing and just get it bigger and bigger and bigger, where it's like a full blown event.
Absolutely. That's incredible.
So yeah, just
Oh,
kind of
love that.
come up with all these different ideas, let's try different things, do a themed investigation because you don't really see too much of those or hear of them. And
No, definitely not. That's a great idea. Oh, I can't wait to hear how that goes.
that's gonna be a fun one. Not for sure how many people we have going, but possibly have a few special guests lined up that'll be traveling from across the country for that, and kind of working with them yet to see if they can make it. And
Wow, very cool.
so that's probably gonna be one of my favorite investigations I think this year. But there's just you know so many. Okay, this year we're kind of going big.
That's great. It's amazing how no matter how many places you cross off your list, the list never gets shorter,
Oh yeah,
ever.
I made a list and it's like 4 or 5 pages long, and it's like I can still add to it because I'm hearing the new places all the time. I'm like, oh, I got to add this to the list. And
For sure. Now, last year I was able to cross a pretty big one off the list. I finally made it to Villisca last year. We
nice.
actually did Villisca and Squirrel Cage back to back because they're
Okay.
so close. So that
Yep.
was perfect. That was
Yeah, sometime down the line, probably not this year because we can't really fit anything else in, but we want to do Villisca and Malvern Manor and this at the same night, kind of split half and half.
nice. I think the people I went to Villisca with had a very quiet night. I was tired and I had gone upstairs to the parents' bedroom where the parents had been murdered. And I decided I needed to take a little nap. And while I napped, I fell into a dream of, well, some of the things that went on that night leading up to the murders. And I woke up from that dream absolutely drenched in sweat and out of breath and had said to myself, I think I need a little more. I laid back down to see if I could get back into it. And I did. More unfolded. And after I'd done that 3 times, I'm like, all right, I'm feeling a little beaten up. So I went downstairs and I'm just soaked, drenched in sweat. And my friends are like, it's really quiet down here. And I'm like, I'm dying from the experience I was having upstairs.
But yeah,
Definitely worth it.
my daughter, she really wants to get there, and she goes, I want to find out really what happened and who murdered them. She's just like so interested in going there.
My whole experience centered around that. So after she's had a chance to go there, I would love to talk to her.
Okay.
I'm not going to share a thing about my experience until she's had a chance to do that,
All right.
but I would love to share afterward.
All right. Yeah, we will definitely be getting there sometime in the future, but probably won't be until next spring unless something miraculously happens this year. But you never
Right.
know.
Oh, for sure.
So, also I see you write books about your experiences. How many books have you written?
Oh, God. I've got 3 in the works right now. I've got 3 that I'm currently working on. One is just this close. I mean, one is going to be ready and out there. I'm thinking by summer. I mentioned my experience at the Civil War House is going to be a book unto itself. Well, that's going to be number 4. I've not done anything with that yet because I'm currently bouncing around between 3. And, just last night I got an idea. I don't know that I want this to be a book unto itself, but I think I'd really like for it to be incorporated into something I'm working on currently. When I had 2 people last night say to me that the experience they had was one of the most real and profound and meaningful experiences they've ever had, I think I would like to get some people that I've investigated with to write up these experiences we've had together so people can read their perspective on it in conjunction with my perspective on an experience. So
Mm-hmm.
that's evolving. I have so much going right now. I have this idea that I'm getting closer to bringing to fruition as well for like an audio recording of guided meditations that will be available on Spotify. And I'm also looking at, well, this is going to be announced very shortly, but I'm going to have a product out there,
Nice.
a product out there with my name attached to it. That should be coming out very soon, that you'll know at least what it will be.
Yeah, so
Those that know me and have investigated with me won't be surprised at all once they know what the product
all
is.
right. Yeah, going back to talking about the book, it's like in our team Discord, I set a file up and there. It's like, after this year, when we go into investigations, I want everybody to put their different perspectives on experiences they've encountered at each of our locations. I want to do a book on that just to see, like, if we experience the same thing, not everybody's going to tell it the same.
For sure.
And then, like, with the whole experience that we had at Waverly last year, and after our Waverly trip this year, I want to do a book just on Waverly and, like, what we've experienced, because as I said, it is like so profound. It's just like it's something my daughter and I still talk about to this day, like daily.
I get it. There's certain things that just you it'll never leave you. I mean, I just in the last couple of weeks have had a couple of experiences where I've said, God, if I live to be 100, I'm never going to stop talking about this. I'm
Oh,
never going
right.
to forget this. I mean, it definitely sounds to me like that's what your Waverly experience is. If you live to be 100, you're not going to forget that.
Yeah, it was just like Yeah, it's like so profound, so unexplained, and it's just like everything about that. It's just like why did it happen, how it did, and it's just it's insane.
For sure. I get it. I very much get it.
Let's see what else do. So, how many do you have any books out now, or are they just all coming out still?
They're all coming out. I do have a subscription page that people can subscribe to where I'll put writing on there that's not going to be released in the book. So I do
Okay,
have stuff out there that people can read through the subscription page.
okay,
None of that will be in the book, or if the locations I touch on in the subscription page are in the books, it's going to be different angles, different stories. So those that are on the subscription page are getting new material. They
okay,
also get a monthly one card reading from me.
nice. And those books, when you release them, will they be on Amazon or
I'm looking at Amazon. I'm going to carry physical copies, of course, for conventions. But yeah, Amazon's the way I'm going to go.
okay? I will definitely be checking those out when they come out because I need to get more paranormal books in my mini library.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah,
Great.
I've got just enough work in the writing to keep me busy for the rest of my life.
Yeah, that's not an easy project. It takes time for sure.
It does. And, when you're involved in many other projects too, and I mean, I mentioned the different places where I do readings weekly and monthly, and I teach classes. Just today, I was at the Magical Druid in Columbus teaching my monthly astrology class.
Yep, you had mentioned that.
Yes, today was astrology for health and wellness and well-being. So that was great. But
Nice.
yeah, there's just so many projects at one time. I guess I wouldn't know how to function if it weren't that way.
Oh, I know. It's like, besides our investigations this year, I'm also involved in a couple different paranormal events where I'm doing photography for. So it's like I'll be doing three or four of those this summer. And it's just like sometimes I don't know if I'm coming or going.
It's the
I'm
best
fine with
though.
that.
Yeah, I wouldn't have it any other way.
Yep. So one last thing we like to do on our podcast is to give you a chance to put out your socials where people can find you and if they want to reach out to you, how they can do that.
Well, the easiest way to actually reach out to me is on Facebook, just under Christopher Lee Jansen. Without knowing any of the links off the top of my head, I am on Instagram, I am on TikTok, and my Patreon page, my subscription page is under the paranormal medium. So
Okay.
those are the easiest ones to reach out to me.
And you did give me a few of those in your bio, which will get linked onto the bottom when the video comes out. But
Oh, awesome.
so
Thank
yeah,
you.
we put those on there too so people can check them out. But then
Yeah, there's so many now. There's just so many different ones out there. I can't remember what all the exact links are for which
same
one.
same here. It's like, okay, wait, somebody wants this one. I'm like, what is that again? And then
Right.
I
But
got
I
like
mean,
from
once you find me at any of these, there's no mistaking. You'll know it's me.
yeah. All right. Well, it was great chatting with you tonight.
This was
And
awesome. Thank you so
yes,
much.
you're welcome. And I look forward to our post town investigation, and hopefully you can join us at Old Hospital as well.
Oh, I'll do everything I can to make that happen.
All right. Well, you have a great rest of your night, and we will definitely be in touch soon.
Sounds good. Take care.
Yeah, you too. Have a good night.
You too.
All right, bye.
Bye.
This has been Nightmare Stories of the Other Side, a production of Nightmare Explorers.